Are you ready to align marketing and sales to make 2021 the best year ever? Welcome to the 2021 Sales and Marketing Alignment Challenge, brought to you by Vanilla Soft and the Outbound Conference. Each day you will be inspired, equipped, and challenged to take action, to work together to align your sales and marketing efforts to drive new levels of success. You are about to be coached by some of the world's foremost marketing and sales thought leaders. This is going to be practical and fun. So grab a pen and a notepad and get ready to take action as we join our hosts, Daryl Amy and Jim Carr.
All right, welcome to the 2021 Sales and Marketing Alignment Challenge. Jim, I am so excited. This is going to be fantastic.
Daryl, I've been looking forward to this for a while. We've had a big build up and getting our lineup of experts for the next week and a half. And I even began my day today, Daryl, before I had my first cup of coffee, admitting I think 11 or 12 more people into our new LinkedIn group around the challenge as well.
Keeps firing in it. Hey, I am so excited and welcome everybody. I'd love for you to give a shout out in the chat. Where are you from? And what do you do? Are you in sales? Are you in marketing? Love to hear from everybody. And this is going to be a fun, interactive, action-packed, very practical event here over the next, it's going to be from now to the 10th. So we got 8 days here, weekdays at 1 to 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And it's exciting to see what's going on. Looks like Mark's excited for the challenge. Welcome, Mark. I got Dave Tegmeyer in the house from Indianapolis. Dave is a fantastic sales manager. And look, of course, we got Larry Levine here with Selling from the Heart. It's coming all over the place. Romania is in the house. And from my home country, look at that. Welcome, Julie. Canada's capital city, Ottawa. Wow, people are coming in from all over the world here, Jim. This is so exciting.
Including exotic areas like California and Arkansas and everything in between.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome, Alan. We got Henry Davis from South Bend and our friend Dennis from the Netherlands. Great to have you here. And wow, so much fun. We're going to have a phenomenal time together over the next 10 days. This all began, Jim, when you and I were both hanging out with our friend Douglass Burdett, who's going to be here today. And he said, y'all need to talk to each other. And next thing you know, we're hanging out, talking about the biggest challenges sales and marketing people face, companies face when it comes to driving growth. And that was last fall. And here we are today.
Here we are today, and you're right. As we'll pass along some stats and some insights all along the way. But you and I both work with a lot of people, a lot of clients and audiences, and they're trying to grow revenue. And this is one area where they tend to get stuck. And so our purpose here is to find the big problems, get some simple, practical ways to get unstuck and get on track.
That's exactly what we want to do. We want to get unstuck. So if you're joining live, welcome. If you're watching the recording later, welcome. We're glad you're here. The key in all of this is to work together, to take action, to align. And this was one of the pieces of data, Jim, that really animated us when we started looking into how severe and how critical this issue is. This number right here says it all. I think we agree that collaboration is the deal right now.
87% of those professionals surveyed by LinkedIn last year agreed that bringing sales and marketing together is critical to growing revenue. And that probably strikes us all in the gut. I would say that the 13% who not represented here probably just aren't aware. I think this is a group of the 87% who not only know that this is an aspiration, it's a thing, but they also know it's critical right now. As we know, 2020 has made a lot of things very urgent right now. We can't have misalignment, unmade connections to get in the way. Revenue growth is critical in 2021. This is an area what we know we need to take care of. It's no longer tolerable. It's no longer just a thing that we have to put up with. And so that's why we've laid this out the way we have. Let's take some simple, practical steps you can put to use right away with your team and bring alignment together. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just better align and you will grow faster than your competition and faster than your plan.
Well, in sales and marketing alignment, something we've almost in some ways I think given up on in a lot of organizations. We laugh about it. I think laughter is a good thing. So we wanted to start today's challenge with a little bit of laughter, and this is fresh. This is hot off the press from our friends Daniel Disney and Daryl Prale. They just did a skit last week on the Elation Sales podcast. Big shout out to them. And they had a webinar about Elation Sales. They did a skit last week that we want to show you that I think you're going to laugh. I think you're going to cry, and you may squirm a little bit. Do you think we should show this video, Jim?
This is perfect to capture the essence of the traditional between sales and marketing.
All right, buckle your seatbelts. You get ready to laugh.
Daniel, here's the issue. I'm running sales, you're running marketing, but the leads you're giving me, they suck. Candidly, they suck and they're not qualified. Why aren't you giving me more leads? Those trade show leads where they get a tchotchke, that's not a lead. That's why you suck, man.
Wow. Daryl and sales coming in hard. Daryl, I'm giving you great leads. Your salespeople just aren't converting them. You don't have closers. Your salespeople can barely string sentences. I'm giving you the leads. You're not doing anything good with them.
I call them when you give them to me, and after 10 or 15 or 20 of them, I realize they're crap, and I don't need my team spending time on crap. So we just ignore them. You know why? Because they're crap. Why can't you qualify them properly?
Hey, look, we're out there putting out amazing content. We're bringing in great qualified leads. Again, your salespeople, they're not having the right conversations. I've checked the reports. They're phoning them once, getting through to voicemail and not trying again. They're eating through data and not calling them the amount of times they need to be doing it. Why am I going to bring you more leads when you're just going to flush them down the toilet?
You say you're looking at the data. That's bogus. You know why? Because I get measured. I have a sit down every single time with their CRO or CEO, and we go through the pipeline. What do you get? How many website visitors you had there? You don't understand the nearest concept around being measured. My butt is on the line every single day, and I get fired if I don't hit the number. You just go and speak at a trade show where I go talk about hashtag social selling.
Wow, I'm enjoying this a lot more than I thought. And Daryl, fair play to you. Getting personal there, hashtag social selling. Look, Daryl, my job is to get the brand out there. My job is to bring the traffic in. My job is to let people know what we do. We do that. We bring people to the website. Those people on the website, they then come through as inquiries. Those inquiries go to your salespeople. And what happens? They don't convert. I know where the issue lies. That's why your neck is on the line and mine isn't. I'm doing my job. What are you doing?
You bring students looking to research white papers to the website, all right? You look for the next person looking for their job. That's what you're bringing me. And what you give me are Gmail addresses where it's hotbabe@gmail.com looking to buy something. Come on, here's the issue here. All you're doing is spending a boatload of money, gobs and gobs of money that I could use to hire more sales reps instead of you spending it on the crap you do, so that I can actually drive the revenue machine that this company is.
Well, that's what we need, Daryl. More bad salespeople making bad calls and not following up with the leads that I'm providing. Good use of the money there. I don't know what you're trying to do, but I'm going to go and get these leads. Maybe we need to get some better sales training. Maybe we need some better sales coaching. That's where the hole's got to be. If I'm bringing in the leads, where are they being converted?
You think where are they being converted? Let me tell you where they're being converted. They're being converted when I close the deal. You think selling's easy? You live in your ivory tower and you tell me how to sell? You've never picked up a phone in your life. I'm going to live behind Twitter and LinkedIn and talk about stuff, but not actually close deals.
Hey, look, I work in marketing. I know everything about sales. That's a given. You have to know about sales to be in marketing. I'm just going to churn out loads of content. I'm going to ask your sales reps to just reshare it on LinkedIn because that's what hashtag social selling is. And guess what? It's going to drive new business. Marketing is a complex art, Daryl. I'd like to see any of your sales reps do any of the marketing activities that we do.
You say that, yet you talk about all this content you make over and over content. Have you ever once talked to me and my team about the content we need, not the crap you make? The stuff you're spewing in your content, your blog post, your ebook, has nothing to do with what my team is talking about. Just listen to a call or two, will you?
Daryl, I have qualifications from 15 years ago and when I studied marketing at university that mean I know marketing all the way through to the day I die. I know everything there is to know about marketing. So what I say goes.
Oh man, it's just
Isn't that great?
So funny and painful and real. And boy, do we have some work to do, Jim.
Yes. And I will be interested to hear from our participants today in chat or even after today's session. You probably found yourself either pulling for the salesperson or pulling for the marketing person, or maybe you're in product marketing or ops or enablement and you're trying to understand all of this, or you might even be a head of the business. You might be the founder or the general manager or the CEO or CRO and going, do they really talk to each other this way? They might.
Well, and this is why we're here, a little tongue in cheek, but these are the things that we need to begin aligning and working together. And so over the next 8 sessions, it's going to bleed into next week as well. We've got a fantastic agenda, and we've looked in this challenge at 6 key points of alignment, 6 key points of alignment. And what we want to do is we want to look at ways as sales and marketing leaders that we can work together. Because when we start working together, when we start building things together, strategizing together, then we set the stage for alignment to begin to happen. And we've got 6 key areas that we want to focus on here over the next 8 days. And it's going to begin with strategy. Strategy is a fantastic opportunity for sales and marketing leaders to get together and think, especially right now, Jim, as we're moving into this new year with a lot of shifts and changes in the economy and the marketplace.
Yes, and it's time to get clear, get past differences in language or finger pointing, if that exists in your company or not. One of the things that we thought was really important in setting these parts out is let's use common sense, common experience, and the things that we know that work. And so we're not disintegrating into a conversation about lead quality. Well, let's get a little bit more fundamental. Let's start with strategy, right? What is the go-to-market strategy? Where is the revenue going to come from? And then we go all the way through to have you identified the right people, the right organizations, where that's going to come from, where you be saying and showing and asking the right things in your messaging, working all the way through and using technology well, and make sure that you're following good, consistent processes so you can stay on track. So all the way through, and I'll encourage everyone to, again, have your team, whether you're able to follow all of the sessions live or even if you go in afterward, do this together. There'll be a common language, common goals, common priorities, and that's how it's all going to work. These pieces are sequential; they fit together really nicely, and you'll come out of this with some very simple, practical action steps you can take right away.
You bet. And actually, just if you're following along here on YouTube Live or the challenge later, watching this later, if you look in the chat, we've put a link to a document we'd like all of you to download and use as a reference guide as we move through this. It has this model, and we're going to have some action items on the end. But you're right. We're going to start tomorrow with strategy. We've got one of my favorite strategists. I absolutely love Meredith Elliott Powell. I think hands down is one of the best business strategists coming tomorrow. On Wednesday, we've got Mark Hunter. Mark is an ideal client profile. The way he teaches that is so clear. I love high profit prospecting, high profit selling. Our friend Mark Hunter is going to bring that. The message, we're bringing back my favorite. I call him the message man, none other than Jim Carr, author of The Science of Customer Connections. That'll be on Thursday. Friday is going to be a real treat. We've got a former Disney Institute instructor joining us, John Langford, and he's going to share what he believes about customer experience. It's a very powerful alignment point that a lot of us haven't considered, but a great way for sales and marketing to work together. Daryl Prail brings it together with technology from a CRO's perspective. And last but not least, we've got Jeb Blunt, who's going to talk with us about sales processes. And then we're going to wrap it all up together with an action plan at the end of this. And I'm going to facilitate that. Let me tell you, the next 10 days are going to be very powerful. And I want to challenge everybody to dive in. And the other thing I want to challenge everyone to do is I want to challenge you to get your counterpart involved. So if you're here today and maybe you're a marketing leader, well, I want you to go and bring your sales leader tomorrow to this, your sales leaders. If you're a sales leader, I want you to bring your marketing team to this. You can watch the videos later. You can come live. But what we really want to do here, Jim, is we want to facilitate conversation and engagement and get this alignment process started.
You will not get the results you could if this becomes marketing trying to convince sales of something, or sales trying to convince marketing of something, or your business leader just wants everyone to play nice and stop complaining to them about your issue. No, do this together. And you'll find this not only to be more effective, I really think you'll find this energizing. People will have a new focus. They'll have a new energy. They'll want to put these steps into action right away. So that's very important. Do it together. We have world-class experts and with practical guidance for you. And we have some sponsors who have made it possible for us to bring this to you absolutely free of charge.
Yeah, a huge shout out to our sponsors. And today we want to just say a thank you to our friends at the Outbound Conference. Check this out, and then we are going to dive into a phenomenal panel discussion with our friends here today.
This has been the most trying year for salespeople in the history of sales. There's been nothing like it, and you know that. And so many salespeople who have been working hard to keep their companies alive, to keep jobs alive, to keep the economy alive, are just at a point of exhaustion. You're worn out. And that's exactly why we are investing in Outbound 2021. This is a celebration. We rise up together. We take the next iteration of the economy together, and we're going to celebrate the getting back to normal together. We're going to keep you safe. We're going to put on a rock show of rock shows. This is a great opportunity to get out, to take a break, to celebrate what you've done this year, and to build your skills for the future. You can grab your tickets at outboundconference.com. There are going to be limited because of social distancing and keeping you safe, but don't miss out on the conference of the year, June 15th to 18th in Atlanta, Georgia, Outbound 2021.
Yeah, it's dynamite. Well, hey, welcome. We got the panel together today. This is a great group of folks. Welcome to our friends, Douglass Burdett. Welcome, Kathleen Booth. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's do some introductions here, Jim. I know Kathleen from the Inbound Success podcast. Kathleen is you bring a rich background in not only inbound marketing, having owned your own agency, now working in marketing and talking with dozens, hundreds of people on the Inbound Success podcast. We've got a great resource here today. And Kathleen, Jim, why don't you introduce our friend Douglass?
And Douglass is someone like Kathleen who has an excellent vantage point, talking to a lot of other experts and practice leaders, doing it for clients and audiences, but also within their own business. So a lot of you might know Douglass Burdett as the host of the Marketing Book podcast, and it's been interesting. We'll let Douglass speak to this, not just some of the leading marketing authors and great books that are there as resources, but a lot of evolution on the sales side as well. So a lot of authors on of wonderful sales books that he's had as part of that as well. Douglass also is the founder and head, whatever you call it, head honcho of Artillery. So he provides marketing and revenue help for manufacturers. So he's working with clients as well as with thought leaders on the podcast. So between Kathleen and Douglass, really a great vantage point of what's happening in practice and in thought leadership.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good conversation. What we want to talk about today, just to set the stage here, is what's going on right now in sales and marketing alignment. What are the trends? What do we need to be thinking? What are the imperatives as we look forward on all of this? And so I'm just curious right now, when you think about sales and marketing alignment, how have you seen sales and marketing alignment evolve over the last few years? Who wants to give that one a stab first?
I'm happy to start. I guess one of the trends that sticks out to me when you ask that question is the emergence of this chief revenue officer role, which in some cases is really still the head of sales, but in many cases is somebody who owns sales and marketing. And so it's very interesting to me that in the C-suite, sales and marketing are starting to converge under one single position. I think there's a lot of good that can come from that. It's interesting to see who goes into those roles, because you can really enter it from a sales or a marketing position. But I do feel like organizationally, as we begin to really bring sales and marketing under the same umbrella, that's going to really change the game.
For sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And first, but let me just mention something else. Your video with Daryl Prale from VanillaSoft, he mentioned hotbabe@gmail.com, and I really don't appreciate him just throwing my email address out there for everyone.
Duly noted, Douglas.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that from my perspective, I've seen more interest in sales and marketing alignment because of the notion that sales is feeling like they can't do it all themselves like they used to, and there's sort of that. It's driven by that need to align sales and marketing. And the example I often give is when my dad needed to buy a car, first place he went to was the dealership, and that's because they had all the information. So it was pretty typical of an example where the seller had the information and the buyer wanted it, and they could extract that pound of flesh along the way. And then the other example is when my wife wanted to buy a new car a couple of years ago, where do you think was the last place she went to get information? Anyone?
Yeah.
Google?
Not the dealership, her husband.
Right? Yeah.
Well, my point is that's the same sort of problem that we're running into with the sales and marketing alignment. And we all like to talk about how marketing and sales are changing. It's really just because the way our customers buy has changed, and that is what seems to be in many instances the straw that's stirring the drink. That's requiring closer work between sales and marketing alignment. And the reason I say that is if anyone's ever seen a movie and you've seen a continuity error. Some people are obsessed with these things. When your sales and your marketing are not aligned, it's really obvious to the customer, and it's like a real continuity error. So that's just one of the many problems that sales and marketing alignment can help to solve.
And just to add one thing real quickly to what Douglas said, you mentioned sales people not being able to do it on their own anymore. I think never has that been more true than in the last year. Because there are a lot of companies out there that either haven't had marketing or have been sales-led organizations. And in many cases, they relied on events, in-person networking, conferences, trade shows, et cetera, to drive their leads. And those, for a lot of companies, those have been great lead sources. But with COVID hitting and eliminating the possibility of doing those things, a lot of organizations had to shift very quickly, and there was this shift over to digital marketing to shore up what was a diminishing event lead pipeline. And so I feel like the last year has been a great forcing function for this. I always say if I had $1 for every time somebody complained about sales and marketing alignment, I'd be living on my own private island in a palace. But I think this year it's really forced us to address it more so than ever, because we've been put in this very unique situation because of COVID, where a lot of traditional sales channels have dried up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kathleen brings up an excellent point. And I think this past year, we've gone from this whole sales marketing alignment issue being the pebble in the shoe that it's uncomfortable, but we're still able to get around pretty well until we can, break for a moment, get the rock out of the shoe, to something that, again, is no longer tolerable. And so to both Kathleen and Douglas, would you see this as an overall forcing function? Obviously, buyers have more information. They're more in charge of the process. As Kathleen said, we don't have the same things that instigate conversations. We don't have the same venues and opportunities to get in there and do a lot of discovery and that sort of thing. We continue to see salespeople rated by buyers as being unprepared or irrelevant. Where are the areas that you see of being the big gaps, the big misses with buyers when we can't get ourselves aligned? Douglas, do you want to take it first?
Sure. Well, I think that one of the big problems is that marketers have traditionally, and I'm saying all these things I'm going to say, a lot of people have been told to do this, and it's an observation, not a criticism. But a lot of marketers have created content that basically focused on the top of the funnel or the beginning of the buyer's journey, when really they ought to be starting with, what does the sales team need to close a sale tomorrow? In other words, with somebody who's already met with you, and then work your way up. The truth is that sales and marketing, there was a CEB Gartner study a while back that talked about, the perceptions of salespeople by marketers and the perceptions of marketers by salespeople. And like 75% of the observations were negative. So, there's always going to be that friction there. But I think that just like your graphic, Daryl, if you can start the conversation and talk about revenue, which is why, your book was, I particularly liked that. Yeah, because I really like books that tie sales and marketing together. So anytime I have a book about sales marketing alignment, it's great. But if they can talk about the revenue and then do that pretty simple math working backwards, and then have that conversation about, what does an ideal lead look like? Presto, you're probably in the front half of the class right there, just figuring out, well, who is it we want to say no to? Who is our most profitable customer? Just those kinds of conversations can be enormously helpful in determining, in getting better sales and marketing alignment. And the only thing I want to mention addition to that is, don't focus just on the number of leads, because they might be, like in that funny video we saw, they might be really horrible leads. Focus on pipeline. In other words, measure the sales accepted leads. Okay. And then figure out what is it about them. And then so you can sort of lift and shift your fires, to use a military term, to focus on those kinds of things.
Amen to everything that Douglas just said. I'm a big proponent of not just aligning sales and marketing in terms of metrics, but I would actually, and this is sort of controversial, some people don't agree with this, but I've gone so far as to say they should be more aligned in their comp, because salespeople are compensated based on closed won pipeline. And then you have marketers who are compensated on things like MQLs, which is, it sets up this misalignment right from the very beginning. I think if marketers were comped more like salespeople on revenue, and that would force us then to track marketing sourced pipeline as the key metric, which I really think is what we need to be looking at. When you look at MQLs, it not only sets up the wrong incentives, it focuses us as marketers on bringing, checking the box with MQLs, bringing in somebody who supposedly meets the criteria. And that leads to the debate you heard in the video earlier. But what really matters is, do those MQLs turn into opportunities? And if they are, then great, then a rising tide lifts all boats. So I totally agree with Douglas. I think the other area to me where, getting back to your question, Jim, where from the customer standpoint, there's like a mismatch between what they experience and how sales and marketing leaders look at the world, is when it comes to content. And I was just reading recently an interesting study. It was the 2019 Edelman LinkedIn Thought Leadership Impact Study. And there were some fascinating stats in there about how something like 89% of B2B decision makers, people who are buying things from other businesses, look at thought leadership content as an important criteria in their purchasing decision. Whereas only, I want to say 59% of sellers see thought leadership content as having value. And And so there's this gap, as marketers. I think a lot of us have embraced the notion that thought leadership is important, and we work to create content. And then you see some of what you saw in the video earlier of them saying, salespeople never share my content on LinkedIn. And I feel like there's more of an education needed. And this is where we often do fall down as marketers. I think it's upon us to educate our sales colleagues about the bigger picture around content. It's not enough to just say, hey, here's a new blog, share it on your LinkedIn. We really need to kind of rewind and focus on, why are we doing this in the first place? And how is it going to help you close more deals?
So strong.
Yes. And let me just add that, and Kathleen won't appreciate me saying this, but Kathleen is a marketing leader and her husband is a sales leader and an expert. So she is living the sales and marketing alignment lifestyle. And to that, I say, bravo.
Well, so fun fact, my very first podcast, which didn't last very long, was called He Said, She Said, a sales and marketing podcast. And literally it was the two of us arguing about sales and marketing topics. But since then, so here's something I will say in all seriousness. Since then, we sold our business. And when I sold it, the company that acquired us, I went to work for them for 2 years, and I spent 6 months on the sales team. Now, when you're a business owner, you are naturally in sales, but I spent 6 months solely in a sales role. And I will say that I strongly believe that every marketer should spend some time working in sales. It gives you a completely different appreciation for what the sales team needs from you. And I think makes you much more empathetic. I think it would be great if salespeople did the same, but I think that changes the conversation, but it certainly for me had a big impact in terms of how I look at my job.
Well,
That's
that
great.
really is the spirit, Kathleen and Doug. This is so spot on, because the spirit behind this challenge is to get everyone together, working together, talking together, meeting together, and building some of this stuff together. And Douglas, that's when just that first step, it's like you said, it puts you at the front half of the class. And that's what we want to accomplish here in the next 10 days.
Yes. And, I've had about 320 books on the show, one every week, and at least 50 have been sales books. And the reason why, as I explain whenever I'm interviewing an author of a sales book, is that the most successful marketers have deep understanding and insights into the sales process, and more importantly, into the customer's buying process. Where's the friction? What are the objections? That makes their content quite a bit better. But also, I'm always so surprised at how many salespeople listen to the podcast. And there's a story that Mark Hunter may tell later this week when when you interview him. In his last book, A Mind for Sales, which is absolutely terrific, he was working with a client once, and there were these two younger salespeople, and they were really, really doing well. And the company was actually concerned that they were doing something illegal. So they said to Mark, can you kind of spend some time with these guys and find out what they're doing? Well, it turned out they were spending all their time with the marketing people. And that was making their sales so much better. So it was really a funny story there. Let me just mention one other thing about the importance of sales and marketing alignment. It's really very much about communication. So there have been a number of books on the show where they talk about how the sales and marketing people aren't even in the same building. They're not in the same city. They might not even be in the same country. So you've got your work cut out for you there. Also, if you don't have buy-in, there was a book on the show called Creating Togetherness by Jeff Davis, a short book about sales and marketing alignment. In fact, he wrote it so that a executive, a CEO could read it on a flight. And he talks about how if there's not buy-in from the top about wanting to make this happen, he doesn't actually take them on as a client because it rarely works. But let me just mention one other book, because I'm the book guy. If you only read one book about sales and marketing alignment, I would suggest you read Aligned to Achieve by Tracy Eiler and Andrea Austin. And that's the story, the real life story of a head of sales and a head of marketing. They started to work at about the same time at a software company. And both of them had worked at companies where sales and marketing were aligned, as well as at companies where it wasn't aligned. And the two of them tell the story of how they decided to make it happen. They weren't being told to do this, okay? And what the process they went through to go to the CEO to get buy-in. And it's really well done. And the thing about sales and marketing alignment that I want everyone to understand is that you don't have to do it perfectly. If you just do a little bit, you're going to be better. And that's why at the end of each of their chapters, they have a couple of bullet points, and it says, if you only do a few things, do these 3 things.
Right.
That's really important. And I would love to get, Douglass, from you and as well as from Kathleen, if you share, it's an observation of what's the status quo at a lot of companies. And what I've found in this pre-COVID and post-COVID is, if there's some initiative, like we're going to bring it together, we're going to get our story straight, we're going to start getting our processes in line, and there would be some sort of workshop or team meeting in person or virtually, and it never failed that we'd have product and marketing and sales and maybe ops enablement, whomever. We get this small team together, and there might be people who have worked together in the same organization for years and had never had a conversation together. And it was just the mere fact of getting people together with some common goals and talking it through from a revenue perspective, from an efficiency perspective, that elevated everyone and got them moving much faster and much more clearly, where they would not have done it before. And as you say, Douglass, they may work in different areas, they have different comp systems, they have different incentives, they have different language, all of those things. And so bringing people together for this and for the follow-up work to this challenge seems to, by itself, generate better ideas and a really good launching point. But I'm curious from both of you, do you still see that as the starting point, the status quo in most companies? And by the way, at least in my experience, this wasn't just larger companies. A lot of them were smaller firms, so they're still not talking to each other.
I mean, I think I've seen it change a lot for the better in recent years. I think there's more education out there about it. And it's interesting. I mentioned when we first started this position of the CRO, which has emerged and kind of brought sales and marketing together. The other trend I'm seeing that points to this starting to get more attention is that more and more I'm seeing SDRs be put under marketing, which is interesting. And I think traditionally they were more under sales. And I'm not saying one or the other is correct, but I just think it's fascinating to me that there's this blurring of the lines happening at a lot of different levels when it comes to sales and marketing. And I think that's kind of healthy, actually, because it forces us to work more closely together. It forces us to take ownership over the outcomes of the other team. And that's good for everybody, quite honestly. But Jim, you said something that I think is really important, which is that communication is at the heart of this. And I just posted something about this on LinkedIn the other day, that when you, as a marketing person, when you go from being an individual contributor to being a marketing leader, one of the biggest things that changes is it's less about doing the work and it's so much more about how you communicate. And that's probably really any leadership role that's true of. But, and it's not just, as marketers, we're trained how to communicate externally to our audiences, but internally you also have audiences. And I wouldn't even term them audiences, because the nature of that word sounds like you're talking at someone. And really internally, it's about relationship building. And it's just as much about listening as it is about talking. But I'm pretty passionate about what I would call internal marketing, and you can do this at any size company. So I'm a serial startup marketer. The company where I am right now, we're pretty small, but even in a small company, you have silos. And so like one of the things that I've launched is a weekly marketing newsletter that's internal. So every Friday at 4, I send something out to the whole company just saying, here's everything we're working on marketing. Here are some of our KPIs and how we're doing against them. And then I always include like a fun marketing fact, some random thing that I think people might find interesting that would not normally elevate itself to the level of me having to report on to the rest of the company. But the point is, it's about pulling the curtain aside, and not everybody's going to want to read that. But for those who do want more information, who are interested in what we're doing, it's a peek behind the curtain that they don't often get. And I think that internal communication is really, really key, not just with the leaders, not just with other leaders in the company, but with everyone in the company.
Yeah. And I'll say it because Jim won't. There's a really good book that Jim wrote that talks about that internal communication. And it's so true. And it's like the dirty little secret of my career in the advertising, the agency world. The most important audience is your internal audience. Then you could go to your customers, then to prospective customers. Just because this is the kickoff and I'm feeling great pressure to talk up some of the other folks. But there's a very interesting thing that Jeb Blunt, I learned from Jeb, and I've interviewed him about 6 times, I think. He's a book writing machine. And so he's a sales expert. You saw him on the video talking about the Outbound conference. I've attended 2 of those. Those are really good, and smart marketers should go to the Outbound conference. But he said in an interview once that he gets hired by the head of marketing more than he does by CEOs or the heads of sales, which is very interesting because there are a lot of marketers that are doing things really well and they're doing their best. And occasionally the ball is getting dropped as it relates to the sales process. And so I always found that interesting that he gets hired by marketers more than any other title.
Interesting.
And I'm encouraged by that.
I think that's very encouraging as well. And, it's interesting, Kathleen, going back to the CRO position, which was really, it actually animated me as I was getting ready to write Revenue Growth Engine. I hope these stats are correct, but in 2018, about 18% of Fortune 1000 companies had a CRO. In 2019, that had grown to 33%. I haven't seen the data for 2020 yet, but what that trend told me was the goal here, we're beginning to realize the goal's not sales, the goal's not marketing, the goal is revenue. And I think in terms of looking at where's the uniting thing to bring us all together, it's revenue. It's driving these results, and more and more, I love the CRO. Whether you have a CRO, whether you are a CRO or not, it's that mindset of saying it's about, this is a revenue office, and what can we do to work together to drive revenue? Where do you see, as we get ready, we're going to take some questions here in a few moments, and already some great questions are getting teed up in the chat. Feel free to weigh in on that. I'm curious, where are you seeing alignment work well? Like, what are some things you've seen? We've already commented on a few of them, but are there other areas? What other areas have you seen alignment really gelling?
I mean, I talk about content all the time. I'm what I call a content first marketer. And I do think that there's been some really great advancements in how marketers and sales teams work together on content creation. And I know Douglass is on the same page with me about this because we have a history in this area. But in the last 5 or so years, I've really seen marketers figure out how to put in place great feedback loops with sales teams so that they have a way of capturing all of the questions that those sales teams are getting, whether it's about the product or, about really anything having to do with what the company does, and then taking those questions and turning every single one of them into a piece of content so that, anything you're talking about in a conversation should really be something where the salesperson could also say, let me send you a link because we've answered that here. And to me, that I think that the real evangelist for that is Marcus Sheridan, who Douglass and I both know, with his book, They Ask You Answer. And that's a great playbook. In fact, it's funny, when I meet with business owners, a lot of times business owners will call me and say, I want to talk to you about my marketing. And I almost always send them that book in advance of the conversation. And I just say, if you do nothing else, just do this, because you don't need a big budget to do that. You don't have to be a large company. All you have to do is align around the mandate that we need to answer all of our audience's questions, not just verbally. We've got to do it in writing. And if we do that, then not only are we going to attract the right leads for marketing, but marketing will be creating content that sales naturally has an incentive to share. You won't have to beg them to share it on LinkedIn because you're going to be making their life easier in doing it. And I think, to me, that's the biggest advancement. And I don't know if that's the right word for it, but that's the biggest accomplishment I've seen sales and marketing teams make together in the last few years.
Yeah. So let me add to that. When, make sure to read the second edition of They Ask You Answer, because he added 100 extra pages. It's one of my favorite books. But when when you start to build this culture of answering your customers' questions, it really takes hold, and people start to realize, oh, this is helpful. Teaching is the new pitching. And the problem that I'd seen in the past, and Mark has talked about, and Kathleen, you've probably seen as well, is when from the agency world, when we would produce all this content, it was like, great, leave it at the loading dock there, and it just didn't work. You've got to, it's got to take hold. And just answering your customers' questions, it's so counterintuitive, but it works so well, and it bakes in this focus on the customer. So one other thing, let me mention, because all these books are running through my head, there have been a number of books on the show about agile marketing and why that various aspects of that work really, really well. And the thing that I love about starting to take an approach like that, where you're not trying to get a whole year worth of stuff squared away, you're going in sprints of maybe one quarter, and then you're measuring to see how things are going. The thing that's so great about that, and that a lot of salespeople like, is that it actually forces sales and marketing alignment in order to use that approach. So
that's good.
It's like wrapping the vegetables up in cheese to get your kids to eat it. I'm not going to share all my tricks with you, but I think you know what I'm talking about.
That's a pretty good one. We've got a lot
that
of
works for you, because I want to write that down, Douglas.
There you go. Hey, you
My
learned
kids are in their
something here
20s
today.
now, but it's starting
I
to
was
catch
going to
on.
say, Doug, I know how old your kids are, and if you're still wrapping their vegetables and cheese, we got a whole nother conversation to have.
No, I'm a successful dad because they already left.
That's
They
so
moved
good.
out. I couldn't get them to stay.
Congratulations. Hey, this has been a really rich discussion. We've got a great questions coming in. I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them, but I want to just pop a few of them up here on the screen to think about together. Larry Levine weighs in and says, along the line of sales and marketing alignment, what are your thoughts on prospecting and conversation alignment between them and the impact it has on all stages of the customer journey? Great question, Larry. Who wants to go for that? I know Jim is dying to say something here. That's right up your alley, Jim.
I don't want to get in the way of the real experts here. I'll just put in an observation, and then you can take it where it really does need to go. One of the very basic things in the alignment on prospecting and conversationally is where it's misaligned. I find that marketing and sales tend to be focusing on different stages of a buyer's journey. So oftentimes, say, marketing can be so focused on early stages, kind of making the argument for change and positioning, and where sales is often focused on close, competitive differentiation, to the detriment of really looking at underlying problems. So I think just knowing where the conversational nuances are, where the focuses are on different parts of a buyer's journey is really important. But I'd love to hear what Douglas and Kathleen had to say.
Yeah. I mean, for marketers, the holy grail is the voice of the customer, right? And who has more access to the voice of the customer than the sales team? So what's wonderful that has popped up in the last several years is the emergence of all of these new sets of tools out there that make recording sales conversations really easy, and then processing the information that comes out of them really easy, and enabling the sharing of that data really easy. That's such a gold mine. And I think, it's great that there's tools at all different budget levels, but, and you can be as simple as simply, if you don't have a budget, you're using Zoom and you press record on your Zoom calls and you just share the links to those recordings. It doesn't have to be a software tool, although they certainly make it easier. But the point is, I think Larry's question is great, because it really points to, this is a critical area where, as a marketer, I can say you're losing out if you're not getting insight into the conversation sales is having. And for sales teams, you probably have no idea that you're sitting on the pot of gold for marketers. So finding ways to make it easier for those two parties to share that information is really key.
Agreed. Yeah. And I say this all the time. One of my favorite books was a book called Buyer Personas by Adele Ravella. And she talks about just 5 insights that you really need into your customers. And those are really helpful for marketers to have. I mean, you need to get all this information from the sales folks, but you also need to talk to your customers. And I can't tell you how many books have been on the show that talk about the linchpin of success, talking to your customers. And I think that's an invaluable thing that the marketing people can be doing. The salespeople are busy and they're focused on closing the sale. But when armed with insights that might prompt a prospect to be interested in changing something, it's very powerful. There was a book on the show called Eat Their Lunch by Anthony Iannarino, and he talks about, it's all about competitive displacement. In other words, going after someone who's not being well cared for by their customer. You don't come in and say, hey, I'm a peddler here. You come in and say, I'd like to share with you some insights that you should probably know about that are coming up in the next 18 months based on our experience with companies like yours. Those kind of insights help you to get meetings. And I'm trying to tie this back to Larry Levine's question about prospecting.
Yeah, that's so good. All of this talking to clients is critical. John McTeague brings a great perspective into this. He says, I know the topic is sales and marketing alignment, but the 800-pound gorilla is customer success. But by the way, and why haven't they been invited to the party? Well, I think they should be. And I also, as we promoted this, the 2021 sales, marketing, customer success, and operations alignment challenge just didn't fit into the invitation. But I think if we also bring customer success, whatever that looks like in your company or operations, into the room, that is a best practice that I see happening right now. We've got customer experience as an alignment point on Friday. I'm curious, Douglass, what you're seeing in that area with customer success or operations getting involved in this alignment conversation.
Well, the question is a good one, and sometimes when I give talks, I'll explain that there's three kinds of companies. They all split this way. One type is very focused on themselves and their products and their operations, and that's not a bad thing, but that's their primary focus. That's probably the largest number. There's another group of companies which are very focused on their competition, and they'll never admit it, but most of the strategic decisions they make are monkey see, monkey do. And there's a third group of companies that are focused on those first two things, but more focused on their customers. And Amazon's an example of that, where even Jeff Bezos, when he goes to one of these meetings, he insists on there being an empty chair in the conference room, and he invariably points at it because that's the customer. And as people get ready for these meetings, they say, oh, wait a minute, you know what? The boss is going to point at that chair. Oh, I forgot about the customer. And so when you're focused on customer success, I think you're clearly focused on, your customers, meaning what is it that's irritating them? Where's the friction in their life? Is there some way we might be able to help with that? I mean, Amazon invented the one-click ordering system, and they were just because they're obsessed with making things more frictionless for their customers. You don't have to be a software company to do that. But even Apple licensed that technology from Amazon because they'd already figured out how to do it. So it's a good question that John is asking. And it's, the most of all these books I've read for the show, the most successful, it keeps coming through again and again. The most successful companies are the ones that have the deepest insights into their customers, even just a little bit better. So when you're talking about customer success, yes, absolutely. It's a great thing to be talking about. And actually, when you're doing that, it makes selling easier and your content focuses more on what the customer wants rather than your own features and benefits. So, all right, I'll step down off the soapbox.
Kathleen, a quick word.
Yeah, it is a great question. And hi, John McTeague, one of my favorite people and an expert in customer journey mapping, I might add. Yeah, it's a great question. And what's really interesting is if you look at the Gartner 2020 CMO marketing spend survey, which just recently came out, they talk a lot about this with respect to COVID, that under COVID, the companies that really survived and thrived were the ones that shifted their focus to customer marketing, because that's the easiest path to additional revenue. Those are the people who've already said yes once. So
faster revenue too.
Yeah, exactly. And so that came out in that survey. It's really interesting. I recommend checking it out if you haven't done so already. But I couldn't agree more. And earlier I said, who has more voice of the customer than the sales team? Well, the other one that has the most voice of the customer is customer success. And so for marketers, working closely with I actually say it's a four-legged stool. A lot of people say three, but marketing, customer success, product, and sales, those are the teams that really have to work closely together. And so for sure, focusing on your existing customers. And the problem, I will add one last thing on this. Again, it came out in the Gartner survey because they looked at what metrics marketers were being measured by. And a lot of it is MQLs and SQLs. That totally refocuses marketer attention away from customers because it really shifts it and makes you look at new revenue. Whereas if we had more metrics focused on upsells and cross sells, or as I mentioned earlier, marketing sourced pipeline, then we would be able to focus more closely on customers.
Yes, what a great discussion. I knew this panel discussion could go on for all day, and it would be riveting. So here's what I'm going to suggest, because we're bumping up against the top of this hour. Let's take this discussion to the LinkedIn group. There is a private LinkedIn group for this event. Putting the link in the chat right now. Join it. And let's keep this going. Kathleen, Douglass, from the bottom of our hearts, sincere thank you from everybody for investing in us today. This has been fantastic.
Thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Honored to be here.
All right, we'll see you in the chat. And Jim, we are off to a great start, but this is all about taking action. And as we wrap up today, we don't want to leave without challenging you to take action. So why don't you lay the action item on us, and then we're going to land the plane here today.
Sure. And this gets into a couple of my takeaways from what Kathleen and Douglass had to say. This is the direction where the winners are going. They've already started that, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but they're building in ways for sales and marketing and other areas to work together. So here's what we highly recommend you do, and do this as a group. Do it with your counterparts in the company. And we're taking this a bit at a time. So we have this sheet that can guide you as you're going through for all of the days, all of the points here. The first one is for you to take an honest assessment of where you are. You may be driven by a few quantitative metrics. It may be a bit of your gut, and it may be a bit of both. But take a look in each of these 6 key areas, and you might look at it on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being, hey, we're really closely aligned. 1 is we know we have problems. But however you want to take a look at it, with your counterparts, your expectations, where does it exist today? And then as we go through each of those points, you can begin to take a look at, here's our current state, here's where we can go in a reasonably short period of time to get better, and what might be one clear action step we can take in each of those pieces as well. It begins with a group honest assessment of where you are for each of these key areas and driving revenue growth in 2021.
Yeah, so we challenge you to do that. There is a worksheet here where you can keep track of everything, and you'll see right there in the worksheet where we want you to start today, an open, honest conversation. How are we doing together in strategy, in ideal clients? Work your way around. We're going to go into each one of these over the next few days. And so once again, download that worksheet. We'll email it to you. It'll be in the LinkedIn group as well. Jim, tomorrow is going to be pure dynamite. We have in the house Meredith Elliott Powell. I would say my favorite person to talk with and listen to when it comes to strategy. She's got some powerful tools you don't want to miss out on.
Meredith is terrific, and she's also clear and practical. So again, this is not ivory tower strategy in a bunch of lingo and obfuscation and those sorts of things. No, these are clear ways for you to think about revenue growth across these different areas, and you're going to come out of this with some, again, clarity and some ideas and specific focus as you're going forward.
So make plans to join us tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can see it on YouTube Live. We'll send the link out to you in the morning. Special shout out to our friends at VanillaSoft and the Outbound Conference for helping make this available to all of us. And so here we go. This is a challenge. This is all about taking action. And we want you to take action. So we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thank you for joining us today for the 2021 Sales and Marketing Alignment Challenge. Alignment requires action. Your challenge to take what you've learned today and work together to put it into action right away. If you've enjoyed the ideas and inspiration you've received today, please take a moment to share this challenge with your friends and clients. Let's all take action. We'll see you again tomorrow.